So what we're going to do is we're going to move into a simple question answers round right now. And I think there have been a lot of comments going on right now. So what I'm going yeah, so I'm going to do I'm going to just go through the questions right now and see how it's done. Okay, sorry, what are the questions that you have right now? But a couple of piece of advice before you go for tomorrow's exam, right? One thing that we came to know very recently is the whole issue of attributions. Okay, and this attribution issue is something that everyone's been asking. So what is attribution? Attribution is nothing but when you take a code that is not yours and you try to submit it like it is your code. Okay, so there are two differences over here. There is something called plagiarism, which is blatant copying. Okay, so this is just copying. Okay, this is wrong anywhere, anytime. Okay, then there is something called attribution. Okay, attribution is when, for example, if you had taken up, if you had gone to Google and found out the code for derangements, right? Now nobody owns the code for derangements, but let's say you had gone to Stack Overflow and picked up this code. You have to attribute over there that you picked up that code from Stack Overflow. Okay, there is a very simple approach over there given. You want to attribute the code to somebody. Okay, now let's say you are finding out the formula of factorial. You don't have to give that attribution to anybody. Factorial is a well-known formula, right? But whenever you're picking up a specific code from somewhere, let's say you go to Geeks for Geeks, or even if you go to the Edyst platform and try to pick up some of the code we have written, right? Please make sure you attribute it to someone. Okay, that's why generally don't try to copy code online. Okay, look at the logic and try to implement your own code. If you are copying the code directly from somewhere, please attribute it. Last year I've been told the number that what is the number? 14,000. So around 14,000 students got caught in one question. 14,000 students got caught and were disqualified directly. After all of this preparation, you don't want to be disqualified just because of this thing. So make sure that your code, first of all, to save yourself from all of this nonsense, your code, make sure it is with you. You're not sharing it with anybody. Okay, they have a very strong plagiarism detector. They'll figure out if you're copying or not. Keep your code to yourself. Unnecessarily, if you give that code out to somebody, they will also not get through. Anyways, they were copying, so they didn't deserve to get through. But you also will not get through even after all of the hard work, right? So you don't want to be a part of those 14,000 students who got disqualified just because of one question. Please don't do that. Keep your code to yourself. If at all you're taking some code from online, please rightfully attribute it. And if you're, the best thing to do is look at the logic and try to implement your own code. Okay, so after all of this preparation, you don't want to be disqualified all of a sudden, right? So please make sure that you are attributing properly, and if you're not attributing, please make sure you're not copying from anywhere. Keep your code safe. For all of the students who are on Edyst platform, try to avoid the Edyst platform on that day. Don't try to post your code, because what can happen is, let's say you post your code on the forum and you posted the code saying, hey, I'm not getting some test cases, can somebody help? You don't know who is going to take that code and post it back again. I have seen people get disqualified from much bigger competitions than CodeVita just because they posted their code online. So don't post your code online anywhere. Your code is your code. Don't try to post it online. You don't know who will copy it. If they copy it, they are gone. You are also gone. Okay, so please don't do that. That is the one of the warnings I want to give you. And it's the last day just before CodeVita. Try to do these 3 questions. Don't even try this Codu string of brackets before you complete the first 3 questions. All of the first 3 questions are fairly simple to do. We'll release solutions for all of them so that you can try out all of them also. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll move to a simple Q&A. I see a lot of comments over there. So that is what we're going to do right now.
So one, I want your help in going back to the students. TCS CodeVita says attribution means give a link where they can see the exact code. Okay. Google.com, stackoverflow.com is not considered. Stack Overflow / something / so if you can just help.
Okay, so let me just give you all an example, okay, of how you can actually do a really good attribution. Okay, and I'll just open google.com and then we'll do. Okay, so let's say if I go to google.com, right, and if I do something like code for factorial, right, so I go to code for factorial and I found this thing. Let's look at 2 links. I found in Geeks for Geeks and I found it in a factorial of a given number, right? So these are the 2 ones I found. So just one second, right? Okay, so let's say I found these 2 numbers, right? So these two codes, what's going to happen is, let's say this is the factorial code, right? And you took this code and you actually copied the entire thing, right? So you copied this C++ program to find a factorial of number. To do attribution, you need to give this exact link. You see this link over here on top, the big link over here, the big over here, geeksforgeeks.org/program for a factorial of a number. This link on top is what you will need to copy in your attribution, right? If you just did geeksforgeeks.org, it is not it will not be counted as an attribution. Let's look at another example. Let's say you are at San Foundry and whatever, I have an ad blocker. But if you look at the sanfoundry.com, on top it says C program print factorial given number, right? That's what's on top. Copy the entire link and make sure that you paste it. So if I copy this link and paste it in my slides, this is what it would look like. Okay. Yeah. So if I copied that link and I pasted it in my slides, this is the entire link. If you don't paste this entire link, it will not be counted as an attribution. Please paste the entire link, okay? And the best thing to do is avoid attributions. Look at the logic, try to implement it yourself. If you have done copy paste, please mention the link. If you have not done copy paste, which I advise you to do, then just go ahead, okay? But the best thing is, the major thing you have to remember is never ever post your own code online. You don't know who is looking at that code and who can copy it, okay? I have had friends, really, I have had my own batchmates get disqualified from some really international level competitions just because they pasted their code on Google Docs online or something. So don't do that, right? Don't get into all of this. Let your code be your own code, okay? All right. So we'll go through some of the questions right now, and I think
two or three very quick questions.
Okay.
Some are generic, some are very specific. The generic question is, where can we find the code? Logic we understand. Where can we find this code specifically for the questions?
So for all of the questions, so one of the questions that we're getting it is the last day. How can we find the code for all of the questions that have been discussed so far? So the first thing you just after this webinar, just wait 30 minutes. We are going to upload all of the codes for all of the questions that have been discussed so far. It's the exact solution code that we have used to generate the test cases. So we're going to upload those codes right now, right after this, and on the Edyst.com, you just go to CodeVita 2019 where the questions are. Just next to it, you will have the solution as well.
So do we need to be a Edyst subscriber or a registered subscriber to access these codes?
So yes, these codes are there at the last module. So let me just show this to you. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. So if I just open it up over here, so this module that is there, right, is in the last module that we have done. That's CodeVita 2019. It's the CodeVita 2019 questions. It's the last module. Unfortunately or fortunately, it is after the payment unlock. So those of all of the partnered college students who have been onboarded onto the platform, please make you have access to it. All of the students who have also paid for this course have access to it. Those who haven't, sorry, we don't have access to you right now.
Okay, so a very interesting question. The question is, sir, you just explained very beautifully the story of derangements. How did you find the word to even Google so that we know what to Google tomorrow?
Okay, so very good question here is, how did you even search for derangements? Like, how did we find out, how did we Google derangements, right? First things first, it really helps if you are not doing this alone, in the sense, if you're sitting with a lot of people and they tell you, hey, just Google derangements, right? That would be a good thing. I'm not saying you copy their code, okay, that's a different part. But if you're sitting with a bunch of people and they're discussing solutions, then if they tell you to Google derangements, you know that you can Google derangements, right? Now, for this question, if you are just able to, continuously Google a little bit about number of exchanges possible without the same pattern, or with number of patterns possible without the same what you could say, without the same position. If you do about 3-4 of these things, you will hit into a series that is derangement, right? So you just need to do a little bit 3-4 rounds of Googling and you'll get it. Just keep Googling for these things. Don't Google for books. Don't Google for arrangement of books. Don't Google for books libraries, because it could be books, it could be characters, it could be everything. What you're Googling for is how many exchanges possible, how many permutations possible without the original position, right? So if you keep Googling this, eventually you'll get it. That's how we did. We just did a little bit of Googling here and there, and that's how we got the answer. A similar question actually from one of the old CodeVita questions, there is a question called logic pyramid, We again didn't get the solution by actually analyzing all of the series. So if you remember that question we had previous two differences. You have to the differences between the two numbers is doubling or something like that. We didn't do any of that. You just Google the series, you'll automatically get the series, right? So for any series based questions, for any formulas based questions, just Google it. Don't waste your time and actually try to figure out the formulas. Okay. All right.
One of the questions is we have only tonight before 3 o'clock tomorrow. Other than these three or four questions which you, what are the other topics you want us to prepare, and how can you optimize the time?
Okay, so one of the questions that we're getting asked is 1 second. All right. Let me try to find out. Okay. Um, so if today is the last day and these are the three questions that you've told us, what are some of the other questions that we should be doing so that we can optimize our last day, right? So the way you can optimize your last day is I actually prepared a list of questions that you should all definitely do. Let me just bring up those questions so you know which ones to do. Okay. All right. So the list of questions that you should do, let me just show them to you on the Edyst platform so that you know. Because it's the last day, one is try to do these CodeVita 2019 questions. They're the closest you can get to the actual CodeVita. Once you've done that, go to math section. In math section, try to do the count the factor question. This is a very important question because it has a little bit of factorial, it has a little bit of prime number. So make sure you do the count the factor question. Okay, that's one of the questions you should do. You should also have a look at in arrays, specifically in arrays. Try to do this question, which is called Sheldon Cooper. So this is the one Sheldon Cooper question. It involves the two pointers approach, and you should definitely try out the two pointers approach. It's not too difficult, so just do the Sheldon's approach also. Then after that, what you should also do is in strings, do the 1 second. Let me do the compiler design question. So if you do the compiler design question, you will go very close to the Kodu strings question. So if you notice, even though this question was asked in 2014, it also used stacks and strings, and this Kodu 2019 question is also using stacks and strings. So try to do this one, compiler design, and if possible, try to do the verify JSON object validity also. These two questions will be helpful to you. Okay.
Two very specific questions from the people. One, can we see the failed test cases like HackerRank during the coding? And a connected question is, how many test cases can we fail to be still accepted as the right answer?
So two questions that we're being asked is, can we see all of the failed test cases? Like in HackerRank, we get failed test cases. So no, you cannot see the test cases. What you will at max get is in each of the test cases, what is the error that you're getting? Do you get a runtime error? Do you get a what do you say, a time limit exceeded? That is the maximum you will be told. What you will not be told is what is the exact test case. That will not be shared with you like in HackerRank. You won't get that. Okay.
How many test cases?
Now, how many test cases can you pass? That will depend on question to question. That's why I was saying try to do the brute force approach no matter what, because at least one or two of the questions you will get cleared, right? One or two of the test cases, and each test cases will have some like step marking. So at least try to do that. The second thing what you can do is try to find out all the edge cases. One or two questions will be edge cases. For example, if the question specifically says print invalid input if any of the inputs are a non-integer, try to do those test cases. You will get 1 or 2 marks over there itself. By doing the edge case questions, you will be able to get 1 or 2 marks for the test cases. So like that, at least my guess is if you do 50% or 60% of the test cases, you might get some marks, right? But that's my guess. I'm not sure about that part.
We get asked this question in every webinar. Do I get advantage by using Python or Java or C++?
Okay, so the question is asked is, do I get an advantage between Python or C++ or Java? There is no specific advantage between any of these. Whatever you can do in Python, you can do in C++ and you can do in Java. There is really no specific advantage. The only slight advantage I'd give is C++ over C, because you can use strings and other things, but there's really no advantage over there. What I suggest is, if you're comfortable in a language, stick to that language. Don't try to learn any new language just for CodeVita, because let's say the combinations, there will be a code on how you can figure out the combinations of a string. Now in Python it's easier, but there is also some other stuff you have to do after that. you won't be able to do that if you're just copy pasting that Python code. Stick to your own language. Even if you copy paste some part of the code, you will be able to do the other parts of the code also. So stick to your own language.
Two very specific questions. Can I submit a code multiple times?
As far as I know, you can submit a code multiple times and that does not detract from your solution or your marks. But still, please go to the TCS official code rules and check it out. Make sure you check out all the rules before you even start the contest. All of these questions best to check on the TCS FAQ page. As far as we know, you can upload a code multiple times and there is no penalty on uploading the code every time.
Can I know the number of test cases that need to be satisfied that you just answered? A very interesting question they're asking is, does submitting the code multiple times impact my rank or my score?
Does submitting a code multiple times impact your rank or score? Again, this is something very, very specific. I would just generally suggest you to go and check the TCS FAQ. As far as I know, it doesn't. As far as I know, probably it's used as a tiebreaker. But again, I don't think it is. So just go and check the TCS FAQ. As far as I know, I'm not sure that that actually weighs in at all.
So can I know the how many questions need to be done to pass level 1 of the TCS code?
So last year, so how many questions need to be done? What's the cutoff? This is a very simple question. This is a very common question we get. I know of students last year who cleared one question and were called for the second round. So I've heard of those kind of students also. It also depends on which question you clear. I mean, if you just cleared the first question, we don't know. Probably if you cleared the first two questions, that's good. But if you manage to clear, let's say the fifth question only, I think you would still be called for the next round. Having said that, your strategy should be this. Look at the first two questions. Try to figure out the best way, not the optimal approach, but the simplest approach to do the first two questions. And your entire focus in the entire 6 hours should be to do the first two questions. If you are able to do the first two questions, all the other time you have is bonus for your next few questions. Okay, so focus on the first two questions first.
So and one of the questions they're asking again is, can I do different questions in different languages?
So can you do different questions in different languages? Yes, absolutely. You can do one question in Python, another one in C, another one in Java. I would not advise you do that, but if the need arises, yes, that's possible. You can do that.
Is there a score or some partial marks given if only a few test cases are passed? You just answer that, but there's still some clarification.
Is the score given if some of the test cases are passed and not all? Yes, there is partial marking. That is, if some of the test cases pass, not all of them pass, then there is partial marking. So that's why I'm saying at least try to get some of the test cases passed through the brute force approach, and then go for the optimal approach.
So one of the questions which people, this is a very basic question, but they're still asking. You kept on. We looked at some of your earlier videos, and you were saying the importance of taking an input.
Right.
Is there anything for us to know in the last moment what this is all about before we start the code?
Okay, so the question that is asked is, we kept talking a lot about taking the input. Is there anything specific we need to know? The good news over here is all of the TCS CodeVita questions of 2019 that I saw is the taking input part is really not complicated. It's just a one line input. So for in the Kodu question, one string was the input. For the question which has input as integer, like the books question, there is just one input integer. So you don't have to take multiple test cases as input, is what I saw from all the zone 1 questions. Again, it's good to be prepared because for the last 7 years they've been asking very confusing input format, but luckily from this year it looks like the input format is pretty simple. Okay, any other question?
So do we all taking the test at the same time get the same set of questions?
Right. So I think there are two parts to this question. Someone's asked, do all the teammates get the same questions? I don't think at this year they are doing in teams. I think last year and the last year before that they used to do teams. This year I don't think CodeVita is doing in teams. But again, please check with your placement team and faculty team. They will be able to guide you better on that. Will everybody get the same questions? No, I have got different students from zone 1 giving me different questions. So I don't think everybody is going to get the same questions, but the difficulty will be roughly the same. For example, the distribute books question and then also the other question we did, the coins distribution question, they were all both question 1 and both of them are roughly the same in terms of the difficulty. So the difficulty should be the same. Okay. Okay, so do previous year questions or their concepts get repeated? Yes, definitely previous year's questions and the concepts do get repeated. I will actually strongly suggest you to look at the compiler design question and look at the Kodo strings bracket questions. They are very similar in terms of the way they have been structured. So it's almost like the strings question, the compiler design question has come again. It's just a little bit more complicated, but the concept is the same, the strings concept is the same, the stacks concept is the same. Even if you look at the derangements question, it's a kind of the similar thing to the previous questions in terms of series and all. So please, like, the more you practice the previous year's question, even in the mock vita, for example, mock vita, half of the questions they've given are like previous year's questions. So they do value a lot the previous year's questions. Yes.
Yeah, one question which got asked, probably you answered, but still clarification.
Yes.
How long should we stick at a problem before we move on to the other one?
How long should we stick on a problem before we move on to another problem? My suggestion is there are two parts here. One, if you're stuck at a problem because you can't find the optimal approach. So for example, in the question that we did of exchanging digits, if you're stuck at the problem because you're not able to get an approach that is greater, that is like optimal, you did the brute force approach and you're just not able to think of the optimal approach, move on. There's no point in continuously thinking of the optimal approach. But if you're stuck on a problem because you got a runtime exception, because you got an input mismatch exception, these are very small problems and you can just spend a little bit more time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes more time, and you will get the solution, right? But before starting any question, spend at least 15 minutes, that is exactly 15 minutes, 5 minutes in finding the logic. If you're not able to find the logic in 15 minutes, move on from that question. Don't waste your time on that question. Try to find a question in which you understand the logic and then go into that question.
Manohar is asking, how do we take an input without knowing the size of n?
Hi Manohar. So the question that Manohar is asking is, how do we take input without knowing the size of n? Let me just clarify. Generally, n is given as the number of test cases, and then after that you're given a bunch of test cases. What I'm saying is, from this year's CodeVita, it looks like, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like n is 1. That is, you don't need to care about n. There is only one input. That is, there is only one thing that's given as an input. So if you're given a string, take the entire string and then you split it or whatever you have to do. If you're given an integer, just take that input as integer. Assume that n is 1 basically. You don't need to write a for loop to get all the test cases. In all of the questions that I have seen so far, okay, for CodeVita 2019 zone 1. Now again, they might change it tomorrow, but so in that case, make sure that you're taking input module is thoroughly revised. Right. Okay. So that actually does everything over there. It was a marathon session of good 1.5 hours, even more than that. So a good marathon session we have done. There are a few more questions that we are getting. How many questions everybody is doing? How many questions should we attempt at max to select for interview? Again, this depends from year to year how many questions you should clear. It depends year to year. Generally speaking, what we've seen is 1 or 2 questions helps you, but again depends on competition. Your aim should be to be in the top 5,000 or top 3,000 ranks. If you do that, then you can actually get through. Beyond that, I think only TCS can answer. There's only so much I know. If you ask me questions related to a TCS question logic, more than happy to help. But the rules of the TCS CodeVita, that's up to them. Please check their FAQs; they'll be able to help out. Okay.
Do you advise us to first read and understand all the questions and then start coding, or go one by one?
Okay, so I'll answer 2 questions over here. I'll answer one of these questions. Does the ranking or selection depend on the language used? No, the ranking or selection does not depend on the language used. The only thing that depends, the only thing the ranking depends on is whether or not you cleared the question or not. Okay. The other question is, what do we suggest? Should we read all of the questions first or directly go one by one? Skim through the questions, go through the 6 questions. See, 5th and 6th are going to be tough, so don't even look at them. First, if I were you, I would go to first, second, third, see which are the questions, and as per my comfort level, I'll see. Let's say the third is a strings question, which is fairly easy. Start with the third question. So skim the first, second, and third question, right, and then you go on to 4, 5, 6. So read the first, second, and third a little bit properly, skim it, and see, hey, which one is the topic in which I know the most logic. Is it an arrays question? Is it a strings question? If you know those logics, then that's the best thing to do, right? Okay, everybody. So with that, we're going to wrap up. This was our last webinar for CodeVita 2019. This doesn't mean that you can't interact with me. I'm on the Edyst platform. You can interact with me tomorrow. You can interact with me on Saturday. We will send out an email also we will not be sharing any solutions to any CodeVita questions on Friday or Saturday. That is considered cheating, and that is not what we are going to do. So we are not going to, do not ask us for any solutions. If there is any doubt you have of any question on the Edyst platform, we will be able to help you with that. My suggestion is, don't post your codes on the Edyst platform. Don't post your codes on the forum of Edyst platform. Somebody might copy it and you will also get stuck in plagiarism, right? But if there's any specific question you want to ask regarding any of the questions on the Edyst platform, we are there to help you. Please interact with us over there. I'm online on chat. Do reach out to me if you need anything over there. Thank you so much everybody for attending. It's been a really great honor having all of you view us. Today's turnout was really great. The one last request I have is, everybody who's been online today, please subscribe to our channel. You don't want to miss out on what's coming next. We are going to do many. CodeVita was just the start. We're going to do many more such series. And if you subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon, you will get all of the notifications about what are the upcoming videos and everything that we're going to do. So thank you so much everybody for being online. I hope this was helpful to you. If yes, please leave a note on the comment section about how we can improve and how you liked our sessions, right? It would really mean a lot to us. And we want to thank all of you for being online. This is not the end of it. You can interact with me on the Edyst platform, and our team is online on the chat to answer your questions also.